The Galactic Academy's xenobiology class buzzed with its usual mix of species. Towering Zephyrians with their crystalline exoskeletons, sleek Vorthon swimmers with their bioluminescent patches, and bulky Kronar warriors whose muscles rippled beneath their scaled hide. At the back of the lecture hall sat Marcus Chen, the only human in a class of 42 students. Earth creatures. Professor Veltar clicked through his presentation, his insectoid mandibles chattering with amusement. A remarkably unremarkable planet. No natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no evolutionary advantages worth mentioning. Snickers echoed from the Kronar delegation. Theus, their leader, turned to Marcus with a predatory grin. Must be embarrassing, soft-skin, being from such a pathetic world. Marcus kept his eyes on his notes, saying nothing. He'd learned that engaging only made it worse. Look at this, Veltar continued, displaying images of various Earth animals. Humans, apex predators, supposedly. Yet they lack claws, fangs, venom, armor, or even basic camouflage. How did such a species even survive? Dumb luck, Theus muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. The Zephyrians chimed their agreement, their crystalline bodies resonating with harmonic laughter. Marcus had heard it all before. In combat training, he was outmatched by species with natural weapons. In endurance tests, he couldn't compete with beings who could photosynthesize or hibernate for months. Even in intellectual pursuits, his single-threaded consciousness seemed primitive compared to the hive minds and quantum-linked species. The ridicule continued throughout the semester. During practical exercises, Marcus was always picked last for teams. When he offered insights about Earth's ecosystems, his classmates dismissed his contributions as the desperate attempts of an inferior species to seem relevant. Everything changed during the field study announcement. For your final project, Professor Veltar announced, you'll conduct a 3-day survival expedition on an uncharted world. Teams of 5 will be randomly assigned. Marcus found himself grouped with Theus, 2 Zephyrians named Crix and Zath, and a Vorthon called Newell. The others barely acknowledged him during their planning sessions. The human can carry supplies, Theus declared. At least those weak limbs might be good for something. Their destination was catalogued as Planet X-47, a temperate world with diverse biomes, supposedly uninhabited. The shuttle dropped them in a dense forest as artificial night began to fall. Shelter first, Theus commanded, flexing his natural armor. Kronar don't need much, but the rest of you soft ones will require protection. The team scattered to gather materials except Marcus, who stood quietly observing their surroundings. While the others focused on immediate tasks, he noted the wind patterns, the positioning of various plants, the behavior of small creatures, and the distant sound of running water. Stop daydreaming, human, Crix chimed, his crystalline body refracting the fading light. Contribute something useful. By morning, their hastily constructed shelter had partially collapsed from overnight winds, and their water purification attempts had failed when Zath's crystal resonance inadvertently shattered their equipment. Worse, Newell had suffered mild poisoning from local vegetation that looked similar to plants from his homeworld. We need to find water and food, Theus growled, his usual confidence wavering, and better shelter. I might have some suggestions, Marcus said quietly. Like what? Theus snapped. Your species barely managed to leave your own planet. Marcus gestured toward the forest. I've been watching the local wildlife. There's a game trail that way leading to water. The soil composition suggests we're near a river bend where erosion would have created natural shelter opportunities. The group reluctantly followed him through the forest. Marcus moved differently than his classmates, quieter, more observant, pausing frequently to examine tracks, scat, and disturbed vegetation. How do you know all this? Newell wheezed, still recovering from his poisoning. Pattern recognition, Marcus replied, helping the Vorthon navigate around a patch of the toxic plants. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We learned to read landscapes, track prey across vast distances, predict animal behavior. They reached the river where Marcus had predicted, finding natural rock overhangs that would provide better shelter. But their relief was short-lived when a pack of local predators, 6-legged creatures with razor-sharp claws and pack intelligence, surrounded them. Theus roared and charged, his natural weapons gleaming. The predators scattered momentarily but regrouped, clearly recognizing him as the primary threat while keeping their distance from his reach. Crix and Zath tried their sonic attacks, but the creatures had already adapted, splitting into smaller groups to minimize the effect. Marcus studied the pack's behavior, noting their communication patterns, their reluctance to fully commit to an attack, their glances toward something behind the group. "They're not trying to kill us," he said suddenly. "They're hurting us, away from something." "What are you talking about?" Thijs demanded, swinging at a creature that danced just beyond his reach. "Look at their positions. Classic pack behavior. They're protecting territory, probably young nearby." Marcus pointed to a cluster of rocks upriver. "We move slowly that direction, show we're not a threat to whatever they're guarding, and they'll let us pass." "That's insane," Zath chimed. "We should fight." "Your way isn't working," Marcus pointed out calmly. "Trust me." Something in his tone made them pause. Slowly, Marcus began walking toward the indicated rocks, hands visible, movements non-threatening. The pack continued to circle, but with less aggression. One by one, his teammates followed. As they moved away from the hidden den site, the predators gradually melted back into the forest. Over the next 2 days, Marcus's knowledge proved invaluable. He showed them which plants were safe to eat by observing which ones the local herbivores avoided. He tracked weather patterns by watching cloud formations and animal behavior, leading them to shelter before a violent storm struck. When Crix injured his crystalline structure on sharp rocks, Marcus improvised a splint using local materials and principles of structural engineering that worked better than their advanced medical supplies. Most remarkably, he did it all while carrying the heaviest pack, never complaining, always ready to help when others struggled. On their final morning, as they waited for pickup, Tess sat beside Marcus by their campfire. "I don't understand," the Kronar warrior said quietly. "Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses. How do you survive?" Marcus smiled, poking at the fire with a stick he'd carved into a useful tool. "We don't survive because of what we are. We survive because of what we do. We observe, we adapt, we persist. When other species hit a wall, they try to break through with brute force or enhanced abilities. Humans? We find another way around." He gestured to their campsite, the efficient shelter, the organized supplies, the small innovations that had made their stay comfortable despite the challenges. "We're not the strongest or fastest or smartest species in any single category, but we're probably the most stubbornly creative. We take whatever environment we're in and figure out how to not just survive but thrive." When they returned to the academy, word of their expedition spread quickly. The human who'd been dismissed as weak had become the reason his entire team survived and succeeded. Other students began approaching Marcus with questions about survival techniques, problem-solving approaches, and the peculiar human ability to find opportunity in adversity. Professor Veltar revised his lectures on Earth species, noting that while humans lacked specialized evolutionary advantages, they possessed something potentially more valuable, an unparalleled capacity for adaptation and innovation. Marcus continued to be the physically weakest student in his class, but he was no longer seen as the least dangerous. In a galaxy full of species optimized for specific environments and challenges, the beings who could handle anything had carved out their own unique niche. The bullying stopped not because Marcus had proven he was like everyone else, but because he'd demonstrated that being different, being human, was its own kind of strength.